Hey everybody, my name is Al Amin Juma, and I want to talk about Game API web services and how we used an API, a RESTful API, to make a client to communicate easily in a good way with the server. So a client-server communication or connection. We used RESTful API web services because take a good example of a game called Instagram game or Facebook game. Instagram game has 1 billion users, and Instagram game also has 1 billion devices, and the devices can be PCs, can be Windows, can be iOS, can be iPhones, can be Android, can be anything. Okay, and these users are from different countries. Imagine you can build a connection between one device to the server or one user to a server using the device, but what about a Facebook game which has 1 billion users, okay, and which has 1 billion records? Okay, it can be really difficult to manage this. That's why here comes a RESTful web service, which you just build an endpoint to connect maybe a user with the scores, or maybe a user with the details, with the payment services, maybe a user with a certain platform. This is where a web service really works easily. So we used a client to server architecture, or what is called MVC, to build the web service. So I want to talk about how the game API really works. Actually, we have a game API that we posted it on the server. So this API is private. It's called https glmp.heroku.com/third-party-access/API/playscore. We have many APIs, for example, like the YouTube API, maybe payment services like M-Pesa, and a lot of them which are public. You can use them for demonstrations, or maybe for your for your own services. But this one is private for our own company. It means it's only given to those gamers who are registered into our platform. As my partner has talked about game registration and company registration. So even if you steal this URL or this API service which we built, by the way, in our using PHP as the backend, it will not help you, because it will not help you to send anything or to get anything. Okay, you cannot post or you cannot get nothing because you are not registered with the platform. We kept what is called API authentication. Okay, so with API authentication, we assign what are called API token keys. For example, here we have an API key. This is a game that we developed using JavaScript, and we deployed it to Netlify global server, so that we can be able to post the data and test if the API is really working, because we need a real game to test it. So it means you are assigned a certain key for security. This API key will basically go to our server. It will ask the server. The server will be locked by that time. So it will ask the server, I want to access, okay, the server, so that I can post this data to the server. The server will then send an API key match, and if it matches the API key, access is granted. If it doesn't match, access will be revoked, so you cannot do anything about that. That's why you find a place like here, we have verify keys, verify users. Okay, we have to verify if this is a user. Okay, so this is an API to verify the user. We have an API for the players scores. We have an API to add the gamer. We have an API to add the game itself. Okay, so we have a lot of APIs endpoints that are really trying to verify the initialization of API verification before any action happens in the database with any game. For example, like this JavaScript game that we developed. So as I was saying, the API link that will be shared to the gamer they will be given this API, and they should be able to fetch data. For example, in JavaScript, you can fetch data using XML HTTP request. You can use new versions like Fetch API. You can use old version like curl, which is called curl, to fetch data. You can use any language you want. You can use any device you want, whether it's Android, whether it's iOS, whether it's a Mac, whether it's HTML. The only thing you should be able to do is fetch data, the user ID, the ID of the game, the play mode. We should know if this is single or it's a competition. You should give us the starting time, you should get the stopping time, you should get the score, and also the API key to do the whole verification before anything happens. So given that everything is successful, the access is granted and everything, therefore a connection is initialized between the game, okay, between the client, and between the web application that we developed here, which is called school game management platform. Okay, so we have a client to serve architecture where we have two clients. One client is the web application, another client is the game, which is called multiplication game, and then we have a server which is called Heroku, which is now it's a global server where it's trying to serve the architecture of this API and whatever is being posted or is being gotten. Okay, so so we have this game inside our application. It's called multiplication game, which is a real game. You can go play it. A student can click to play individual, or they can click to play as a group. When they click to play as individual, as you can see here down, the game ID is 4, because this is the 4th game to be registered into the platform. And then as you can see down here, we have also the user ID, which is being queried so that it can be sent to the game. Therefore, this request here, it's a multi-authentication request between the client and the server and the game platform. So the user ID will be queried and will be sent as a link. Okay, as you can see here, we have ID of the game and the user ID. This user ID, every user, which is the student user, every student is assigned a unique ID, and every student is assigned a specific email, because they should be registered and all those stuff should be finished before they can click to play the game as individual or as a group. So right now we just implemented the game API with playing individual, because it was kind of getting too complicated and making assigning more tokens to compete between games and sending URL links. Okay, will have been really taken a lot of time, so that the student can compete. Right now we are demonstrating using play individually only. So for example, as I said, we have this game here. So a student registered can click on play individual or competition, and when they click, this ID is being sent and also the user ID is being sent. So in the game, the API request checks if the game and the user is registered in the platform. First, the game will check, okay, is this a real user being who is playing in the platform? Okay, is this a real game that it's registered in the platform? And if yes, a response, okay, will be accepted, as I told you, using API keys. And if the player is not a student, they will play the game, but no scores will be fetched, since the API only accepts the students and from the student registration table. So basically, a student, after they click play individual, they can start baiting. For example, like 90, you get it right, they get it wrong, they try again, they play the game, they play a game, they get it wrong. This is basically now the implementation of the gamers. So I will leave it for here because it's for 1 minute and I don't want to waste time. Our score is 4. So I will go back to the presentation. So the game developers should have some requirements. First, they should be able to fetch all data that is needed to be inserted into the platform. For example, in our JavaScript game, as we're demonstrating here, they should be able to get the user ID, the play mode, the starting time, the ending time, and the scores, and even the API key that can be used for verification. Here is a good example of a real one using JavaScript, which we deployed in the game, and this is what a gamer is trying to do, and it's trying to post all this data into the API link that is working on the server. It's a worker service. It's a worker service working in the server. Now this data should be collected in JSON format. As you can see here, this is all requirements which are required for that gamer. The gamer now did not send you know, you can collect data using XML, you can collect data and send it in form of HTML, but here we need it in form of JSON data, because in our platform we did what is called JSON decode array, and JSON decode array in platform, it decodes the JSON data that is coming from from the game. Okay, we are doing what is called a JSON decode. Okay, so the game can and then the game can use any programming language. They can use Android, as I said, they can use JavaScript on anything they want to use. There's no problem with that. So the data is then sent to the server using the API. The JSON data is decoded and then is inserted into the database. But do not get this wrong. This won't happen if the API key is wrong. And the API key is uniquely for every game user and every game ID. Therefore, when the connection is authenticated, like yes, this is a real game developed, signed into the platform, and yes, this is a real user from the platform, then the data can be, after being decoded, it can be inserted into the into the database. So after the database has accepted the data can then be used by another client, which is called the game learning platform, game learning management platform. As you can see here, the game is over. Now this one was a real user that was in our database, and this one is a real game that was in our database. We want to see if this score we want to see if this score is real, and if this time that it ended is real, because it ended around 6:10, I think. So I'll go back to the game learning platform. When you click under my dashboard, you see my grades. So this is a student registered inside our game platform. Her name is Hadija Ramadan. Her email is this. Her school name was retrieved. The play mode is single. The game name is multiplication game that she played. Her score was 4. As we saw here, the score was 4, and it ended around 6:10 or 6 what. I remember it was around 5:14. As you can see here, the time is 5:14. Okay, on Thursday, May. And it's in Thursday, May. The whole time is being registered into the database. Okay, so after all this is done and is done successfully, then the client, the API worker service works in a good way. Unless you are not a user, unless you are not assigned an API key, you cannot do post and get request over the HTTP. You can, in the dashboard, for example, in the server, you can click, have a connection to the database server, where you can click and see all the user, all the data that is being queried here. So I will not do that for now, as the time is moving. I have to finish. And on recommendation, what I would like to say is that in the future we can do what are called payment services. Payment services, for example, players can do a trial maybe for 1 month or 1 week, and then if they like the application or the school they like it, they can go on and pay the application so that they can learn, and we will improve their skills. Later on, we also want to use the money for our marketing skills, maybe buying a bigger server, okay, because right now the server is only 5 MB. Okay, a real server should be over 50 GB so that you can manage 1,000 schools or for 500 schools. You cannot do 500 schools with 5 MB. This 5 MB is just for testing. Okay, we in later on we can do what is called an API two-factor authentication. Right now we are just doing a one factor because it's just like, okay, are you a real application, are you a real user, do you have an API key? That's one factor. Two factor, it's whereby even if you are authenticated in the server, you can still not access it, not unless you put a code that is sent through an SMS, an email, or a URL that will help you enter directly. Okay, and you can use things like auth2, which is a good thing, or you can use things like Google API, social media media authentication. Also, we can use things like API tokens. In the future, we're going to develop API tokens which will be sent as links, and these links are unique for students because they will help them compete. When they click on competition, for example here on the platform, okay, when they click on competition on the platform here, they should get API tokens. These API tokens are in form of links, and these links are unique. Okay, they are unique, meaning that they expire once the user click on the link. Okay, and this is kind of a more advanced API development. We also want to in conclusion, we want to say that the GLMP is an application that simplifies teaching technical skills to schools by allowing students to play games, and their data is managed well, and their authentication and their usernames and passwords and everything is well architectured so that we can ensure their security. Okay, we can ensure that we're encouraging them by giving them like gifts. Okay, maybe like after they compete, maybe like who is the best hacker, maybe who is the best gamer, okay, who is the best player. Maybe also in the future we want to help teachers give homeworks through this application. On the reference side, we want to thank all these places where we got the ideas from. For example, like how to understanding agile software development cycles. It wasn't easy, and this is how we were developing and testing each and every time. And we used also like this link, like large scale Scrum canvas. From this link, we also saw an example from gamelearning.co, but what their idea was that you don't play the games, you just watch the videos, meaning that they are already played inside the game. The games are already played but are recorded as videos, and then students watch them so that they can learn history. And it was specifically one subject, just the history of the nation, maybe the history of Oman. And they're seeing the games being played already as they watch the video. But for us, you play the real game so that you can improve your own analytical skills. And we also went to schools to do a questionnaire, and they really loved the idea. And I will leave from there, and I want to thank Mr. Faisal. I want to thank my partners and all teachers who helped us understand the whole idea up to this point. Thank you.